Alrighty, so welcome to Bike Overnights by Tarra Gundrum. And I would like to just start off with a few housekeeping rules. So to let you all know, this is being recorded. We have a friend on from Adventure Cycling who is recording this just so that we can be able to share it in the future with folks who were unable to make the call. So just want to let you know that. And then also I'm going to ask that you please mute while I'm doing the presentation. That way we have a great user experience for all on the call without any feedback or distracting background noises. We do have the chat feature, so please feel free to use that to ask questions, share information or feedback. I would like to just share that all of the information I'm sharing is kind of like from my perspective and my experience. I am not know all end all, so I don't know all of the things about bicycle touring, but I can just share with you what I do know. And one of the things that I'm going to share right up front is the fact that you can really hone the experience and based on like what others are sharing with you, what you find works best for you. So sharing tidbits and things like that here and there is basically how I got started. And you're going to just grab little pieces from everyone's toolbox that you encounter and create your own experience. So if you have information to share other than what I have to give you, please drop them in the chat and, we'll explore it and learn from it and grow from it. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right into the presentation. I'm going to kind of get through the entire thing, and then we'll have like a question answer period at the end, because you may have a question up front over some information that I'm already going to cover. So just for the sake of time and clarity, I'm going to go ahead and get through the entire document. All righty. Click here. One quick check. Did my screen move forward for everyone? If someone could just shout out yes or drop me a note in the chat. I just want to make sure we're tracking that way.
It moved forward for me.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So we're going to get moving. So Adventure Cycling Association, I like to start. I'm an ambassador for Adventure Cycling, so they shared with me all of these great resources here in the slide presentation, and I have added some of my own items to it as well based on my experience through touring. So you're going to see a lot of that change back and forth here. But this slide is really pointing out all of the details about Adventure Cycling as far as the membership and the various resources that they have to offer, all to inspire and empower and connect people to travel by bicycle. And a note here is just a link for you to get a free membership through Adventure Cycling. So all of the details are on their website, and you obviously can't click into the presentation, but I will definitely share the link with you all after the call here. I'll drop it in the chat, and I'll also post it on my Facebook. So how do you get started doing bicycle touring? Bicycle overnights is really the simplest and easiest way to get started touring. You pretty much start very local, in your hometown, familiar roads, familiar parks, familiar destinations, and things like that. And you just find somewhere that you're comfortable going, find that comfortable distance for you, and select a date, destination, plan your route, and head on out. It's fairly inexpensive to get going, although you can really like enhance it and make it really, really nice and spend a lot of money, but you really don't have to, okay? So no fancy equipment needed. You don't really have to go too far, and that builds in a lot of confidence knowing that you have some of those emergency resources that you're comfortable and familiar with right at your fingertips, or you might even know some folks in the area. So staying close for your first overnight is probably a really good idea, and it's also a great, great adventure. So what is the best time to travel for a bike overnight? I like to do my overnights over the weekend. I have the opportunity to extend my weekend that way, maybe get off of work early on a Friday night and head out shortly, like to a destination that's not too far away, get set up, and then I have the entire next day to explore and not feel rushed, and then still get back home on Sunday where I have time to take a break. So that's kind of like how I do it, but put it together however you like. I left this slide in here. This is old slide from my previous presentation, but I just wanted to point out the fact that Adventure Cycling Association hosts two awesome events every single year. We just passed Bike Here Park Day and Bike Travel Weekend this past weekend, but I just want you to see that these activities do exist. So next year, go ahead and make sure you check out both events. They're typically two separate events, but this year, due to COVID, they happened all in one weekend, just to keep them on the calendar, but also they waited a bit to try to make sure that things were a bit more safe, I suppose, and that people were a little bit more comfortable given our current circumstances in the land of COVID and safety and social distancing. So just kind of keep an eye out for those two events next year. And I have to share, this is a picture of me and my dog Maggie from Bike Your Park Weekend and Bike Overnight Weekend. So I took Maggie on her very first bike overnight. We went out to the Kohler Andrea State Park here in Wisconsin, and she did very well. She's only 5 months old and she totally rocked it. So I can't wait for more experiences like that with her. Okay, so destination. I shifted the slides around by the order that I kind of plan a bicycle tour. I like to pick my destination first. I'm going to pause really quick and ask that everyone please mute. I'm hearing a little feedback, and I just want to make sure everyone gets a great experience. All right, so destination. I like to choose the destination first and do backwards planning from there. Because, you know, there might not be really awesome, cool destinations that are within a bike ride from your home. But if you find that destination and kind of fan out, start fanning out based on the amount of time that you have. And then maybe your mileage capabilities, like how much do you plan to ride in one day? So a good example of this is, let's just say I want to go to a state park that's like 60 miles away from my house and I'm doing my first bike overnight. Well, that's just not feasible for me to just hop on my bike and go 60 miles for the first time and feel comfortable doing so. So what I might do is take that destination and search for various things in the area that could aid me in my experience. So maybe a park and ride. Is there a place within a reasonable riding distance that I could park my car? Is there maybe a state park or a Walmart park, a Walmart parking lot that, you know, they typically allow you to park your car overnight there? It's well lit, good security, things like that. So use those resources. And then maybe if you find something that's close enough to your destination, you can park your car there comfortably, safely, and then bike to that destination, experience your overnight and bike back. That's a really good way to experience cool destinations when you don't have a lot of time. Maybe you're only dealing with a day or two, but a car can aid you in really amazing experiences. So that leads me to the next slide. And the number one question for new bicycle tourists is, how far can I ride in a day? And I will say that this totally depends on you, your ability, your drive. Like, what do you want to get out of bicycle touring? What can you handle? You have to consider all of any health standards that you might have to keep an eye out for, stuff like that. So I say evaluate yourself entirely to come up with this, and don't ever try to bicycle tour based on someone else's ability. I can see you getting in all sorts of trouble that way and not having a really great experience. This chart here shows a couple of different suggestions. Number one suggestion that I heard from a bicycle tourist before was that never bike in one day more than you can drive in 1 hour. So for me, right off the bat, I use that kind of baseline, and I typically don't plan a bike tour that's more than 60 miles a day. And oftentimes it's a lot less than that. And it really depends on the terrain. How much weight are you carrying? How many hills do you have in your route? Is the terrain, like, I don't know, is it rugged? Is it wet? Like, all of these different things you have to consider. So just figure out that baseline for you. and test it out a little bit. Like, don't go for the max ability right away on day one. Maybe shorten that in half or in thirds, and just kind of figure out, okay, I did that well. Let me tack on a few more miles and see if I can do that and do that well. And then just kind of like find that happy medium for you, but always go based on your own ability. Next is planning your trip. So planning your trip is like oftentimes for me, like that's really, really fun. I enjoy the entire planning phase and the logistics and just trying to figure out like, where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to eat? And things like that. Like, how much time do I have? And how long is it going to take me to get from, point A to point B? How many stops do I have in between? Like, I'm a big foodie. I am always trying to figure out where I'm going to eat, where am I going to get extra food. And, I like to have a great experience with food. So if that's part of your trip, if that's part of your planning, maybe eating and seeing the local areas or just kind of like exploring historic sites and things like that, build in all of the time. And what I mean by that is like, don't just say, I can do 60 miles a day, so I'm going to do 60 miles a day. And then you're so focused on that you don't enjoy the reason you want to tour in the first place. So it's okay to cover good distance, but remember the reason that you're there so that you can really enjoy the journey. All right, so this slide here is covering the various routes and maps, just showing you different resources that Adventure Cycling has basically at your fingertips. So over 50,000 miles of planned routes and things like that, and you can purchase different route maps and map sets, and there's constant updates and then revision sheets and things like that as the area changes and maybe new roads or road closures and things like that. So don't forget to take advantage of all of these awesome resources. Like, here's a good bicycle route navigator app. Again, that'll kind of help you come up with ideas if you don't have one already. Here's a list of the US bicycle route system. Kind of overlapping all of these things together, you can come up with some great routes that are rider friendly. Oftentimes some are on trails or some are on bike friendly roads or roads that have decent shoulders to ride on. And some, I mean, you just don't get the best riding condition, but they try to connect you the best that they can on the safest route systems. But there are going to be some areas where you might end up in a less desirable situation, but just kind of like look at your route ahead of time and you can see where those areas are, and just be a bit more mindful and cautious of the times that you're in those areas. This site here is one of my favorite bike overnight site. Lots of great resources. There are similar classes to the ones like the one that we're having here today. There are awesome trip reports and things like that from folks who've just done an overnight, or maybe sharing their story, their trip blog, or however that works. You can feel free to check that out. Great information also on YouTube as well. If you type in bike overnights, you can find so many different cool things. So just lots of research, and you'll have a really good time. Again, here's just a list of some of those resources for you to check out. So Ride with GPS, Rails to Trails Conservancy is like so amazing. They convert old railroad beds into bike trails. Sometimes they're paved, sometimes they are gravel and just kind of like more unimproved, but nevertheless, they are less traveled by cars. And that's what us as bicyclists, we really enjoy when we're not in that high traffic area. One of the apps that you see on here, Komoot, that's actually the one that I use. That's my favorite route planner for bike touring. I really like it because it allows me to choose 4 different modes of travel. So I could do road cycling, I could do touring, I could do mountain biking, and there's one other, I don't do it, so I have trouble remembering it. But when I click bicycle touring, it takes me off of like your as the crow flies trail or directive, if you will. It's like, it takes you on a more scenic route and gets you off of the major highways. And it's assuming that you have more time so that you don't mind going in the most scenic direction. And I really enjoy that. I find even in my own hometown that when I select touring, I discover things that I would never have discovered in a car, or pathways and bicycle lanes that I didn't even know existed. So it's a really cool thing. No matter what navigational tool that you use, see if they have a touring option and totally check it out. Um, when it comes to basic gear for bicycle touring, I mean, you don't want to just up and go without anything, but I also want to share that you don't have to be the subject matter expert on everything. Okay, don't let that deter you. I am getting an internet unstable pop-up here. Can everyone still hear and see me okay?
I can hear and see you. You were breaking up a little bit, but I could still understand you, so I thought it was my computer.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. Well, as far as the basic gear, like I said, if you wait to become a subject matter expert on everything, it's likely that you won't ever go on a bicycle tour unless you're like a bike mechanic or something like that. So don't let that deter you. But I do encourage you to at least have all of the necessary tools to fix a problem, and hope and pray that you come across someone who actually has the skill set to do so or help you along the way. And there's always YouTube, and I've literally sit on the side of the road and fixed things on my bike just by looking at YouTube videos and having these simple tools with me. So here's the list. Some sort of way to repair a tire. So having an extra tube. Some folks are tubeless and they don't have to worry about that, in which case make sure you have extra like juice or whatever you call it. I don't even know the proper name. I just call it juice. Have that stuff. Extra patch kit. There's even some like you can use like a credit card, or they call it a boot or a dollar bill or something like that, just to kind of create a barrier between like your tube and your tire, just to get you to a safe destination where you can get a proper fix. Make sure you have a pump. Funny story, I'm going to just veer off track and share this with you. Each tire, there's like two stem options, like a Schrader and a Presta valve, right? So one's like kind of fat, like you'll see it on your normal kids bikes and things like that, and one's kind of like more skinny and it requires a different valve attachment. So before I went on my first tour, I went and bought this like cool little pump. It was super tiny, and it said that it was good for both tires. I didn't even look at it. I just tossed it on my bike. I was like, check, like I have a tube or I have a pump. And I started experiencing all of these flats, and my pump was set up with the wrong valve attachment. And I was so frustrated. I couldn't figure out how to switch it around. And I was just determined, like, I was like, it must be the wrong pump. Like, it's not the right one. And I went through the whole bike trip without the right pump, stopping, trying to find different ways to air up my tire. And turns out I had the right pump all along. I just had no idea how to unscrew it, like flip it around, and then like make it adaptable to my tire. So I would say regarding the pump, make sure that you get one that's adaptable for both tires, not only for you and your bike, but you might come across a cyclist who could use some assistance, and you could share it that way, and know how to use it. Just at least know how to rotate it around. It's a funny story, kind of like a no-brainer, I thought, but I share it with you because I totally could not figure it out while I was on the road. So there's my one funny for you. A tire lever, hex wrenches, and food. So I throw food in there everywhere as a necessity. So I think if you have all of these things, you can probably get by without having all of the expert knowledge on how to fix things. And then fail safe, carry like an extra 20 bucks, because like if you have to call an Uber, or if there's some sort of transit available, maybe that could get you by to a safe destination. Or maybe you just want to share with someone who helped you out. That would be nice to have just a little bit of cash with you. 4 different kind of unique ways of bicycle touring. So you can look at these as 4 independent ways, or you could totally mix and match. I like a combination of them all. Fully loaded is what I've done recently, but I find that if I don't have a lot of time and I'm trying to cover a lot of distance, that the bike packing might be a good way to go. Just, kind of like reducing some of the weight. And it also helps you go over bike packing, lighter weight, different types of terrain. It helps you kind of navigate through various styles that way. And then the credit card touring is really fun. It's something that I did with my husband. We wanted to have a more like luxury experience. We don't want to be like super bogged down and camping and cooking every night, which is a great experience. Don't get me wrong, but we knew right off the bat that this was going to be a luxury weekend for us, and we wanted to entertain the local fair. We wanted to check out some music events that were happening outside and things like that. So we rode our bikes, we enjoyed ourselves, got a hotel, hence the credit card, and showered up and went out on town, had a great time, and loaded up our bikes the next day and went and did it again. So it's really cool ways to bicycle tour, and you can kind of make it fun for whatever your desires are for that week. Just another picture of like what that looks like. Here you can see the guy in the front with the trailer. So rather than carrying panniers, he's doing the trailer. And then you can see that some folks have front and rear panniers. Some folks have just rear and like a trunk pack. Just really try it out. The gear can get pretty expensive. And if you go hog wild and just buy like everything right away without testing it out, you can spend a lot of money before you find exactly what you're looking for. So just kind of take it slow and easy. Maybe get some rear panniers first, realize that you need more space, go ahead and invest in the front, however that works. And here's a great example of resourcefulness. You can find out how to make these like kitty litter container panniers on YouTube. There are videos everywhere and they really work, guys. Waterproof. You can pretty much get the containers from anywhere. If you have a cat, just kind of buy this twice and you're all set. But yeah, just really, really unique ideas to give it a shot without investing a whole lot up front. This slide here, going into just some keynotes about bringing the essentials. Really make sure that you have what you need to survive. Like think through your whole day. When I come up with my equipment list, I literally picture myself waking up in the morning and putting on my clothes to go outside. I'm like, okay, what are those things that I need? And then when I move into the next part of my day, I'm thinking, okay, if it's raining, like, is it cold? Is it chilly in the morning and the evening, but it's like hot in the afternoon? So in this case, rather than bringing extra heavy clothes and light clothes, I'll just bring layers, just to kind of help me out that way. Layering is probably by far the best way to go on bicycle touring. And then all of your other necessities, sunscreen, toothbrush, medication, all sorts of things like that. So your sleeping arrangements, again, this kind of goes back to the planning part of it. Like, what is your intent for this bicycle overnight or this bicycle tour? Are you okay with camping out? Is that something that you enjoy? Would you prefer to sleep indoors? I like to do a combination. If I'm on a longer tour and I camp out for say 2 days in a row, and then maybe I'll shoot for a hotel on that third day. Or maybe I'm an every other day type gal, where I camp, hotel. Maybe it's a variety of hosts. So there's an awesome website out there called Warm Showers, and it's warmshowers.org. It's basically like a reciprocal kind of like hosting, cycling type site. A lot of the hosts are bicyclists themselves, or they have bicycled before. Maybe they know someone who used to do it. Like a lot of folks are like, oh, my kid used to bicycle, so I enjoy being a host for Warm Showers. And then there are some who just love supporting the community and they hear the great stories and they just really enjoy that type of interaction. So you can do a variety of all. I say plan accordingly. Look at your route and find out what's along the way. And actually, sleeping logistics will really help you determine what you're going to do and how many miles a day you're going to go. Because you just can't pick a number and say 50 miles a day. you have to look at that and say, okay, today, if I start here at mile 0, my sleeping accommodation options are at mile 35, there's a campsite, but at mile 43, there's a hotel, and the next available campsite isn't until mile 70, right? So for me, I look at those options, and I say, well, 70 is off the list. Don't feel like that today. So I'm either going to have a short day today and a long day tomorrow, or I'm going to do this 45. You know, you got to kind of plan it that way. And then you need to look at the next day. Okay, if you do a short day today, how many miles do you have to do tomorrow to get to your next sleeping accommodation? So just kind of really play with that and look at where you're going to sleep. All right, food, probably my most favorite slide. Here you'll see 3 different pictures of like the food that I eat, right? So the top picture is a tortilla with some peanut butter and olives. Like that is literally my go-to basic kit. No matter where I'm going, I always have that in my pack because it's like kind of somewhat shelf-stable items. I won't allow the tortillas to expire. I'll eat them at some point, but they're great because you can do breakfast, you can do a quick peanut butter wrap. You can usually find like jelly for free at any gas station or something. So there's your peanut butter and jelly if you want to grab one of those when you stop and get a coffee or whatever. I have these little vacuum packed olives. I like kind of like sweet and salty mixed together. Here in the middle picture, you'll see a unique thing, like that's bacon and egg tortillas. Well, that's a bit of resourcefulness. I was out on the trail. I had a great dinner at a restaurant, and I knew that there were no other stops between that restaurant, my campsite, and where I was going the next morning until lunch. So I asked if I could purchase 4 pieces of pre-cooked bacon and if they would sell me 2 raw eggs, and they did. And so I was able to cook up bacon and eggs on my campfire, and that just kind of worked out. So don't hesitate to ask questions while you're out on the road too. Like, you know, they looked at me like I was crazy, but in the end, they sold me 2 eggs and 4 pieces of bacon. So, and then the bottom is probably one of my most favorite things to do. I love stopping at grocery stores along my trip. So this is basically a classic stop at a deli. If you're concerned about eating somewhat healthy and not having to eat fast food or ramen noodles or peanut butter and jelly the entire time you're on a trip, hit up the local delis at your grocery stores. Go and grab, you know, whatever pasta salads they might have. You can get like, can I get 2 pieces of meat and 1 piece of cheese? And yeah, they'll sell it to you. So let your imagination go when you're trying to figure out what to eat on a tour, but make sure you have some sort of necessities that you can grab at all times. When you just need a quick energy fix, whether that's a bar or, like I said, peanut butter and tortillas or whatever. Powdered milk is a really good way to travel as well if you want something to add just a little bit more variety to your meal. And granola for breakfast in the morning, powdered milk and water, you got yourself a nice bowl of cereal. So that's another thing I like to do. Cost. Well, I think we kind of went through the fact that this bicycle touring adventure can cost you little to no money, and it can cost you a lot of money depending on how you choose to travel. I've gone on tours where I didn't spend a penny, and these are just 2 or 3 day trips where I get all of my water for free off the side of a building with permission, of course. Most public buildings have a water hose, and most folks don't care if you use it. And most grocery stores have a restroom, and I've filled up there when I went to the restroom and took my bottles in and did that, gas station, stuff like that. And the rest of the food I had with me. So, and I camped, so that wasn't an issue. So you can really just kind of play with this, the cost of it, and to fit your liking. This slide is my safety slide, like how to be safe when you're out. The biggest thing is to see. So to see and be seen. To see means have the proper lights that you need just in case you get stuck out at night. Now, a lot of folks won't carry lights because they figure I won't be traveling at night, but that's the thing. You have to be prepared for any circumstance. Although traveling at night might not be your intent, if something happens, If you have a mechanical or maybe a route closure and it's taking you a little bit longer than expected, just have what you need just in case. Some highly visible reflective gear as well so that you can be seen. I'm pretty loud when I'm on the road. Like you can see, I have bright lime helmet, lime jacket, reflectors on my panniers, bright red panniers, and I also have a tail light and I have a headlight for my bike, and I also have a headlight for my helmet, because one of the things when I like to ride at night, I enjoy it. It's a different kind of peace. But you'll notice that when you're cycling and you only have a bar mounted like light on your bike, if you hear something or you're trying to see something, you turn, you can't see it. So I ended up putting a light on my helmet so that while I'm driving forward, I can see it. But if I look in one direction, I can also see off to the side. So just consider those things. And make sure that you check your bike. Just do a really quick, I guess, preventive maintenance check to make sure that everything is nice and tight. Like one of the things I have to focus on is my seat. My seat sometimes like to slide down. So before and after every ride, I just make sure that that's nice and tight. So, and then also carry a bike lock. Just kind of put that on there for you guys to make sure that you protect your number one mode of travel while you're out on the road, carrying a simple lock. Again, here, just highlighting the fact that you can get a free membership through Adventure Cycling. I'll drop that link to you guys here shortly. And some other resources that Adventure Cycling has available to you that's really kind of cool and allows you to get an understanding of what's going on in the world around you by the Adventure Cyclist e-Digest, the Bike Bits, and then Dynamo Jenny is this new women's focus bicycling area for you to go and check that out. And here I highlighted it because I love the podcast, and two, they introduced me as a new Dynamo Jenny, so I thought that was really cool. But the podcast is amazing, so I highly encourage you to go listen to that. And they also have a really neat newsletter that you can read into. And then here I'm just sharing a little bit about what's next for me. So I have my first book that I'm publishing. It's called Find Your Possible. For those of you who have seen me in any other format, like on YouTube, you know that that's my mantra, is finding your possible and not being limited to anything. So that's coming out Thanksgiving week. And I'm also starting a nonprofit. It's called Find Your Possible Adventures, just connecting children to the great outdoors. I didn't find bicycling until I was like 34 years old, and I just want kids to have access to that sooner rather than later. I think that it can really kind of shift the narrative of giving them something exciting and positive to look forward to, and just a way to kind of release energy and burn off the crazy, especially in a crazy world like we're living in today. And then a couple of bike travel plannings for next year, two really exciting options. Really all depends on getting off of work and being able to shift from home life to road life for 1.5 to 3 months. So time is really going to dictate. I'm really shooting for the Northern Tier, but if not, I'll be on the Underground Railroad. Both are great ventures that I'm excited to partake in. So here's how to stay in touch with me, guys. This is all of my social information. I have my website at tarragundrum.com, and then Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook there. So it's my pleasure to be an ambassador for Adventure Cycling Association. I thank you for your time today. And at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and click over so that we can have a good question and answer series here. So thank you.